Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2 of April 5th, and this is the 11th lesson in the series so far. Pardon me for not being extremely smooth there. So yeah, what I'm going to speak about today is solar consciousness and how it is meant to be a two-way street from sending out information from the sun, like if my hand is the sun, to each one of us as individuals, basically how the stars are a neurology and how they're all connected, and how this relates in an analogy to the human endocannabinoid system and what the endocannabinoid system is. So let me first jump in just by even writing that down and describing it and saying what it is. Cool, let me clear this all out. This is from level 1. You can see what we were talking about. Okay, endocannabinoid system. And hold on, let me also drink a bit of water here. Okay. Endocannabinoid. This comes from, change of color so you can see it better. Endo meaning inner, and cannabinoid, this is from familiar with where the plant known as cannabis. Our bodies all have an endocannabinoid system within it. That means a network of biological aspects that respond to this molecule that is known as a cannabinoid that doesn't just exist in plants, that also exists naturally within our own biology, and that is found in human breast milk. And the idea is that we have this system within our own neurology. Now I'm going to draw some neurons. These are like super simplified neurons, right? So the impulse is coming from your brain over here where I just made that scribble and going down the neuron in this direction, that way over there. And then what happens is, let me go back. What I'm drawing is the synapse. And this gap over here, I'm making a big fat squiggle. That is the synaptic gap or the synaptic cleft. All of our thoughts and all of our body impulses are impulses to like move our skeletal muscles and everything else. All of this impetus, these neural impulses, they're all chemical impulse. Well, they're electrical impulses. Like here, I'm an electrical impulse. I'm moving down the nerve. But when I get to this zone over here, I have to get turned into a chemical impulse in order to make this jump across the synaptic gap. And then I can continue onward on my journey, going off the screen there, on my journey, going to wherever I'm going. So if this is the brain over here, I'm making a big squiggle, and then this is your toe over here, I'm making another squiggle. We're coming from your brain to your toe, but in order to get there, we have to jump across many synaptic gaps. And the process of jumping across that gap is a chemical process where you have little molecules that are released and they travel across in this direction, and then we have that impulse is kind of like translated into an impulse that can continue on its journey, blah blah blah, all of that in order to understand that what's going on in this gap over here. Right now with humanity, this is acting like a one-way street. It's either going in this direction like that, or we do have feedback from the toe to the brain. We might also have an impulse that is going in that direction like that. But it becomes a unidirectional highway. And one of the challenges is, like, let's say a person is suffering from neuropathy. You've got your toe over here. There's nothing wrong with your toe, but it keeps on sending pain signals in this direction going towards the brain. Wait, here's your brain over here. It keeps on sending pain signals. Pain, 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 pain. And it might be doing that even though there's nothing wrong with your toe. Now, wait, let me go back to my face. How do I stop share? There we go, go back to my face. So that is a problem that many people are facing right now because there are not very many cannabinoids in the human diet in this time and place. In ancient times, like in China literally means the land of hemp, and it's over 5,000 years ago, they had a lot of dietary cannabinoids. They grew hemp, they used it for fiber, they used it for food, and oh, where's my juice? You guys know me at this point. I'm sorry, I'm ducking off camera. Here's my wonderful, I don't know if you can see it, it's all kind of squished down at the bottom. I have regular, fresh squeezed juice that I put in there, and then I've got some fresh raw cannabis that I froze as a cube last summer, and because my garden is still growing outside. But I have raw cannabis juice in here. Look, I have dietary cannabinoids that are coming inside of me. And the whole point is our human diet used to have plenty of dietary cannabinoids that were inside of it. And after World War II, so what farmers used to do in this country was they grew hemp, and they took all of the stalks were used for fiber, and they took all of the leaves off of the fiber plants, and then they would feed that either raw or ferment it slightly and feed it to their animals, like their pigs and their cows. And you can put it into where chickens kind of scratch, like their bedding where they scratch and they'll peck at it too. And those raw cannabinoids would go into the cows and everything else, and it would come out in the dairy, and it would also be part of the meat. So that was pre-World War II. Many people in regular, the United States, the regular American diet, had access to more cannabinoids in their diet because of farming practices. And when hemp was made illegal, then farmers didn't do that anymore. So we lost a great source of natural cannabinoids in our diet. And right now, many, many people are deficient in their endocannabinoid system, meaning that they don't, what is supposed to happen. Let's go to the ideal. I showed you what's been going on. Let's go to the ideal of what's supposed to happen. So, I'm so happy I can rewind that. Just rewinding a little bit. So you see you've got your neurons there. What is supposed to happen is if we have a red signal that is coming from the toe and saying there's pain and it's going in this direction. If the brain is like, all right, I already know that the toe is fine. There's nothing painful. There's nothing going on there. The brain should be allowed to send its own mitigating signal back to here and kind of send energy in this direction to say, stop sending me pain signals. Basically what I'm talking about is making this, instead of a unidirectional highway, one-way street, a two-way street. And the impulses that are going against the current or against the flow of pain energy that is flowing, towards awareness are basically saying, you don't have to send me these pain signals anymore. I already know what's going on. That is what happens in a healthy body. That is what happens in the way that things are supposed to be structured. But of course, if you take those chemicals that are supposed to be in the diet out of the diet, then it's neuropathy is basically peripheral pain signals that are, it's not like your fingers are actually on fire. That would be bad if we wanted to know that they were on fire if we couldn't feel them. But if you look down, there's like, no, my fingers are fine, nothing is on fire, but the nerves are sending pain signals to the brain and saying it feels like we're on fire, or the toes, or there's pain wherever. And this is what many modern physical complaints are the end result of, that the endocannabinoid system has not been effectively made healthy and given all the things that it needs to function correctly. So unmitigated pain signals keep on going to the brain. And all of this can be fixed and healed with the addition of dietary cannabis. And just a brief understanding of what cannabis is, many people are familiar with it. What happens when you decarboxylate it by either drying it or adding heat to it, smoking it, then it has a psychoactive effect. But if you eat it raw, it does not have a psychoactive effect because it does not cross the blood-brain barrier. So it becomes like a food, the way that, whatever, if I eat some, coconut milk, that doesn't necessarily give me a psychedelic adventure type of feeling. It's a food for my body. So raw cannabis juice, I'm able to drink throughout my day. It doesn't necessarily make me feel like I'm psychedelic playing guitar with Jimi Hendrix on Jupiter. Nothing at all like that. Okay, I'm going to get to your question and thank you, or your comment, and thank you for that. I'm sorry, I'm just going to that question. I know that I'm making a lot of funny faces when I read. I missed a lot of questions in the chat yesterday. Okay. Before. Oh, thank you. The person who said that they love my pants. They're on my Etsy website. I should have checked through the chat in level 1. I'm so sorry. But I'm just trying to scroll to, I'll get to these questions. Pedro was asking, this is more of a personal, okay, I'll answer your question now. So this is more of a personal question. this is your first time in a 3D body, but have you gone through an ascension before? Wow, what a wonderful question. Not into flying rainbow lasagna territory is my answer. That this transformation and metamorphosis that I am undergoing personally and that our planet is undergoing right now, we're breaking new ground. We are innovating. We are doing some cool new jazz melodies that we've never done before. And that is the whole point of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is a tool for innovation, because innovation and unpredictability makes it possible for us to supersede those machine-based intelligences that have been trying to harm and limit humanity for a very, very long time. So being able to make new things happen, it's kind of like, well, we don't know we can't mess with those musicians because we don't know the notes they're going to play next. So we are doing this wonderful, jazzy improv. New stuff is happening all the time that makes it possible for us to do this level of growth and transformation, because otherwise they'd be like, oh, you're going to grow over there, I'm just going to chop you down. You're going to grow over there, I'm going to chop you down. Like it would be very easy for the limiters. There are these, and not to be dualistic about this, but there are several different factions, some of whom want us to grow and thrive, and some of whom do not. And the ones that do not want us to grow and thrive, these are the ones that are like the Saturn cube, the limiters, the harm beings that harm biology, and the dance of DNA. It's roughly the two types of non-terrestrial beings. There are non-terrestrial beings who believe that DNA is like a wild horse. Wild horse wants to run where it wants to run and poop where it wants to poop and do what it wants to do whenever, according to its own innate motivations, as opposed to the ones that want to limit and constrain the behavior of DNA and say, no, you're not allowed to do that dance or have that combination of amino acids or reproduce in that way or have cell reproduction in that way. What those limiters are saying is essentially, you're my horse, I want to put a saddle or a bridle on you, and then I want you to pull my cart. And I'm telling everyone, like, no, you don't have to be a horse like that. You can be like, screw you, I don't want to pull your cart. I want to pull your interdimensional cart. I want to go where I want to go. I want to be a wild, undomesticated phenomenon of consciousness. That's what we're all meant to be. And all of this fits with what I'm getting into, the larger neurology of the stars, because if each one of us is limited in our journey, and we're supposed to move through time and get to this point at my knuckle, and we're not at that point on my knuckle, then everything that is depending upon us, like we're supposed to pass the baton, you're running a relay race, run, then you pass the relay race to the next guy, and then the next guy isn't there to get it, or you don't make it to the place, and he's sitting there like, wait, he's like, I want to run, but I can't because I'm waiting for the baton from that guy. That's what this is all about. And if we, like on Earth right now, most people understand DNA as like parents passing their physical traits on to their humans and subsequent generations. And that's one aspect of it. That's one aspect of making it to the knuckle on my hand so that you can pass along your physical DNA. And, whether your eyes are blue or whether you have attached or free-floating earlobes. But it's much more than that, because you can affect other people's DNA and the time field, even if you never have a baby. Like, that's pretty big. You can be a great thinker or a great musician. You come up with new patterns, and you share those patterns with the rest of humanity. And that means that humanity dances in new patterns. It's like everyone becomes your children. So I'm trying to get everyone to get away from the sense of just pure reproduction, even though reproducing and making new people can be one way of sharing your traits. Another way of sharing your traits is sharing ideas. So if you haven't run to this place freely in order to share your ideas with the next guy who's then waiting for you to come along and get ideas from you, and then he's going to jam on what you've already done, then that is how the entire system breaks down. And I think that's actually a good segue for me to begin to talk about stellar neurology and how that relates to the endocannabinoid system. But since I have the chat up, now I need to read the chat, because I thought that there were no questions at the end of level 1. And Boss is here. Boss, jump up. Can you jump? Here, let me bring our little chair closer. Hold on a second. Hold on. Oh, guys, we're so excited. I'm sorry for going off camera for a minute. We're so excited to have the Boss. Boss has arrived. Okay, we're taking a Boss break. Because, she's going to lick my strawberry lipstick off. Oh, hey, everybody. Good to see you. We got a super wild, undomesticated miniature 8-pound wolf over here. Yeah, Cheeky was eating a gopher this morning on our walk. She's like, I'm not a domesticated dog. I'm a very miniature wolf. All right, all right. So let me look on some more questions. Question from Pedro from level 1 was, can you sun gaze at night with the stars and not just at day with the sun? What a beautiful question. And the answer is yes, we absolutely can. So first of all, you can sun gaze with the sun, even if the sun is on the opposite side of the planet. The planet has rotated into nighttime. You can't physically see the sun in line of sight. Aw, have some hugs. We need some hugs here. You can tell we need some hugs here. Even if you can't physically see the sun, yes, you can connect with the sun. And thank you for bearing with me, guys. The other stars that are usually drowned out, it's like the sun is the loudest musician in the band that is closest to us. Like, I'm singing really, really loud. But at night, what usually happens is we can hear the other musicians that are more like, I'm the delicate sound. I'm far away. And those are consciousness influences that are far away. It's not just they're far away in terms of line of sight or how long it would take for you to fly there, you know, in a clank metal spaceship. They're far away or less overt in their influences on your personality, your intellectualism, your consciousness, your biology. Yeah, we need lots of kisses. They're not as strong of an influence. So the sun is our nearest star. It's the loudest musician. It's like the nearest cell phone broadcaster. Thank you for all those kisses, Cheeky. And it's the one that is influencing us the most. In fact, we are children of the nearest star to us. We're children of the sun. We've literally been created by that amazing presence. The consciousness that flows through your mind, and all the food that we eat and everything that keeps us alive with vital life force energy, and that allows us to have babies and be here at this time, all coming from the sun. So I've said this in previous, like the bones, calcium in your bones, that came from a previous star that lived, you know, was born, lived, and then died. And then in its death explosion, created all of these wonderful heavier elements like gold and calcium that are now part of our world. So some of the things that we have are the end result of the life and death of a previous star, like a grandparent or a great-great-grandparent. We could think of it like that. And some of what we have right now is the end result of, or the ongoing result of the life of the living presence that we have. We could think of that like a parent that is alive, that is presently nourishing us. We're getting all this nourishment and inspiration from the star that is nearest to us. So yes, the basic idea of astrology, not that I'm an astrologer, but the idea is that whatever arrangement of the other stars, other than merely the nearest star at the moment of your birth, that's like the recipe for you. These are all the different influences, all the different notes that were being played in the background when the recipe of you got made. So it's a neurology. We are part of this much larger system of consciousness. So this is a good segue into who I am, who's Aurora, what am I, where did I come from? So Aurora, the physical being here, is the end result of physical earthly matter, of earth body, that is filled up with consciousness from the stellar network, and our nearest star is the sun. The aurora borealis, the phenomenon, this meteorological phenomenon in the sky, is the end result of solar particles interacting with Earth's magnetosphere. And then we see this, brightly colored, moving, changing dance in the sky. So that is where my name comes from. But we have this whole entire neurology. If I were to draw it like pictures, let's make some nice pictures to draw. Thank you for bearing with me while I do technology. Oh, let's clear out some of this stuff over here. Here's a star over here. Oops, not working. There, there's a star over here. Here's another one over here. Here's another one over here. Here's another one over here. I know this is a very rough drawing. Thank you for bearing with me. And let me get a different color. All of these stars are connected through wormholes. They're portals. Stars are portals. They don't just send their star. Let me get back to it. Blah, blah, blah. Stars are not just nuclear furnaces in the sky, what the typical objective materialist present Earth surface scientist would say. It's just a giant ball of incandescent hot gas in the sky. It's the end result of nuclear fusion and, chemical processes that are going on. No, 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 no. It's something much, much more and more fun than that. Each one of these little nodes is like a portal, a doorway. I should draw it as doorways. Here's a doorway. Here's a doorway. These are all doorways of consciousness. And the consciousness is light that is coming from one place and flowing to another place. And these are totally analogous to what's going on in the neurology of your body, where you have all of these different nodes that are connected, and they're like musicians, and the patterns that they make is actual music. And when they are connected well, then they make beautiful music. Zephyr, I love that comment that you just made. Zephyr says, the sun is a planet factory. That is exactly right. Because if we say, this is the sun over here, we'll make some rays coming off the sun so you know what I'm talking about. And then we'll change the color and make planet color. Planets are blue. So all of these planets hanging around the sun are part of the sun's creative experience in exactly the same way that my paintings are all part of the end result of my creative experience. Each one of these little planets is like a painting or an art project that the sun created. So, hey, what happens if I emanate this? What happens if I make this hot? What happens if I send out this much energy? What happens if I send out this much consciousness? And the whole point is, it is not meant to be a unidirectional highway. It's not meant to be like only the sun, I'm making this arrow, sending out energy just to the planets. That is very much how it is presented in the present objective materialist scientific viewpoint. Oh, the sun's just like a dumb ball of hot gas in the sky. It just sends out lots and lots and lots of light and heat and just, sends everything out endlessly, and that it never gets anything in the opposite direction. Now I'm drawing an arrow going towards the sun. That is the opposite. That's not go back to my face. That's not what's supposed to be happening. Just like in your body, the endocannabinoid system, we're supposed to have impulses that come from your brain that go all the way down to your fingertips. And then if you have pain in your fingertips, that you're able to have mitigating signals that go in the opposite direction in order to reduce that pain. That's the act of what cannabis does. And what is supposed to happen in our experience of being embodied little tiny fractal versions of the sun is that we're supposed to have energy and consciousness flowing to us in the embodied beings that we are, embodied individual beings that we are, and then we're supposed to broadcast back to the sun. And we're supposed to do all of this not just at the end of our lives, which is what has mostly been the truth when I draw this little time vortex. Thank you for letting me get to the thing and draw. Here, I'll draw a time vortex like this. I draw this every class. Time vortex. Oops. We are supposed to be able to send back our story of what we're doing in our life. Let me change to a different color. This blue line is the line that happens when we are still connected to the sun and the stars and the source of all ideas and energy. And these red lines are what happens when we terminate on the membrane of death. And each one of those little terminations points, here, let me draw a little dot, boom, dot there, dot there, dot there. Those little last moments, those final denouements, those are like when you hand in your hard drive. That is like when you say, oh, I've collected all this, where my hard drive is over there. But let's say this is a hard drive. I went through my whole entire life and I collected all of this information that I then, when I died, gave it back to the sun. And I said, oh, this is what I've been doing with my time that you've given me while I've been having a body and, using calcium, using all these elements that, other ancestors created for me. And so the idea is the sun is like, that's really nice that I finally got your life story, but this is a little bit after the fact because I can't help you in real time. If I find out after the fact, oh, you've crashed your car into a wall, I can't do anything about it. But let's say that you're able to give me a real-time broadcast. Like right now, we're talking on this video conference. And it's not after the fact, it's not a mere recording. You're able to say, hey, I have a question. Hey, I want to know something. Hey, go faster or go slower. It is interactive. And our whole interaction with the sun and the stars is meant to be interactive. Let's take some more hugs. Thank you, guys. It is not meant to be something where we're cut off from our origins. That's not what's supposed to be happening. We're supposed to be, I'm really happy. I'm having a boss break here. We're really supposed to be connected to our origins the whole time. And that's how I can also understand that many people feel like it's very lonely to be here and frustrating. I'm sorry, we're getting a lot of kisses. I know it makes it a little hard for me to talk. Thank you, Cheeky. Thank you, girl. You know, everybody's watching you kiss me. Oh my goodness. She's like, oh, I know, it's okay. I want to be famous on the internet. Cheeky's famous on the internet now, guys. Thank you. Zephyr says, I know what you're talking about. Thank you, Christine. It's wonderful to see you. And this all gets archived. And for anyone who's watching the archive, you're getting the experience of what it's like, you know, if you hand in your hard drive at the end of your life as opposed to have a real-time broadcast. And for the people that are here in the class live, they're able to say, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, and it's interactive, and I can respond in real time to them. That is how the neurology of both the sun and the stars is supposed to be operational. It is supposed to be interactive in real time. It does feel very lonely and very dangerous even to be cut off from that, because we're supposed to have guidance and protection and help and assistance in terms of new possibilities. If you are literally driving in your car and you're about to go over a cliff and you're able to broadcast to the sun and the stellar network, SOS, going over a cliff, things are not okay down here. The sun actually cares about you. The stars actually care about you. The entire network of neurology of consciousness that is on the stellar or galactic level cares about you profoundly because of that idea of the relay race, that idea of you're supposed to be at a particular place and time to do particular things that are essential to future generations. They're relying upon you. And the thing that they're relying upon, maybe you need to make something. Maybe you need to, you know, chisel something in stone or invent an apparatus or sing a song or create something that they are all relying upon. And if you don't do that thing that you're supposed to do, then they're like, I want to run. I'm standing here waiting for the baton. That guy never passed me the baton. It's this wonderful collaborative effort across time and across many, many generations. And that is the responsibility that we each take. You know, like, it's not just your personal life. That this is also into the interconnectedness of consciousness, because consciousness is not just like you have a separate consciousness from me, from Cheeky the dog, or from a microbe. It's all consciousness. We're all connected together. So all of that consciousness is on a journey, and we are all part of that larger network of neurology. So we're kind of like little tiny neurotransmitters that are down here. Not everybody recognizes that that we are part of this neurology. Imagine if it was like the little, you know, the little synaptic gap, and these little guys are talking to each other and they don't even recognize that they're inside of a larger body, that they have a job that's their personal individual job, and that their personal individual job has an impact on what is going on in the larger neurology that they are a part of. Here, just checking my time. I have plenty of time. I'll go back to full screen is actually really good, so you can see everything. So go back to chat. I wish I could see the chat again. All right, hold on a minute, because that was very good when I could see what everyone was saying at the same time. And again, thank you for allowing me to mess up and not be perfect with the technology, because I'm working with the new system here. Okay, so the answer is to Pedro's question about sun gazing. Yes, you can sun gaze at night. You can stargaze. So you can, you know, I actually had a friend who was much more comfortable with stargazing because she felt that the sun was like way too hot and way too bright. And she was like, yeah, I like to get my inspiration from the stars at night. And that is listening to the further distant, not only in linear space, but also in consciousness and in time. Because think about it, if you're a star and you're over here and this is our planet and we're over here, it takes a long, long, long time for those light waves to travel across space and actually hit the planet over here, as opposed to here's the sun. The sun is right over here. It takes 8 minutes for those light waves to hit us. So a lot stronger, a lot louder music or energy is hitting us from the sun. But when the sun is not being so loud that it blocks out or drowns out all the other musicians, then it is easier to hear the more delicate, supportive instruments of the symphony that are also part of not only our individual personality characteristics, but part of this larger band structure or part of who we are as life. And if I have a few more minutes, and I'm still talking to the chat over here. Okay, so Zephyr was saying plants are our blood, and enjoying the idea of like wild, undomesticated beings. I encourage everyone to be wild, be rock and roll, eat a gopher, you know, whatever. Chiki's a domesticated dog and she sleeps in my bed and she eats dog food, but we went out for a walk this morning. She found a gopher and she ate it. She ate those gopher guts. It's like, that's being who you really are. And so what is the analogy for us? We're domesticated humans. Like I live in a house. Like I'm pointing at my electric light over here. Like I wear a tank top. That this is not exactly like we're wild wolves running around naked. What would be the version of the undomesticated human? It would be a human that does not require any of these aspects of technology because we have cultivated our higher faculties to the point where we can keep warm without clothing or without a campfire or without a house. Literally, we could make our own microclimate around us and be able to stay warm. And that is one of the prerequisites for how experts do star travel. So now, so the analogy in this level 2 presentation was the human endocannabinoid system that is sometimes bereft of enough chemicals, that is only sending unidirectional signals, that is not able to affect body parts that cannot effectively talk to one another. The analogy to the stars and the sun sending out ideas and information to the planets, but not getting feedback. That's it. It's like being in a cellular dead zone. The sun is like, I don't know, I keep calling and I never hear back from you. Like you know, your parents, it's like, why do you never call me? That's the sun in the sky and is saying, I'm sending out all this energy to my little planets that are my little art projects. Why am I not hearing back from you? And the answer is a sad answer, because our planet was horribly invaded and our genetic code was degraded against our will. And it's like a type of rape. It's like a rape of consciousness, and it's a rape of your body, because no one should enter your body in any way without your express consent. And so this was definitely not with consent on the planet and not as individuals. And so you can see this painting that's kind of in the background behind that sculpture there. And you can see that aspect of that painting that is over there, that motif. They're part of the same series. And this painting is called Birth of a New Dimension. And that painting over there is Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And the reason why I'm pointing them out is because it shows in these paintings the ongoing events that we are experiencing on Earth right now. Earth has an ordinarily donut-shaped or toroidal magnetosphere, the protective magnetic envelope that surrounds the Earth, just like we have a time body that surrounds our physical body. And that magnetosphere was, disturbed and degraded and does not function as it was originally intended to. And this is all the corrective experience. The corrective experience, that means just as an example, years ago I had a friend who had been in a horrible car wreck, and when we were in a car and I was driving her, meaning she had already recovered many years later, when we go around a curve too much, she'd still hold on like, oh, I'm really, really scared, because she was still having the corrective experience that just because you go around a curve does not mean that you're going to flip over and, burst into flames and have horrible injuries. That we can have the corrective experience, that just because we have had these experiences in the past does not mean that they have to simply be endlessly repeated on and on and on into the future. We can do something new. This is the jazz, the new improv. We're coming up with a new melody. Something new that we've never done before, that supersedes anything that is predictable, that supersedes anything being stopped. All of us are musicians of DNA, and all of us are working in conjunction with that larger neurology. And the more that we connect in real time, the more that larger neurology can respond to our needs and our difficulties. And if you have ever felt alone or cut off or wondered, like, does God care about me? Does anybody care about me? What is going on here? The answer is the divine cares about you profoundly and is absolutely a part of this, boots on the ground. The divine is not some far removed thing that lives elsewhere and doesn't care about what's going on with you. It absolutely cares about what's going on with you down to the cellular and microscopic and atomic level. What you're doing with your atoms matters to the divine. And same thing with the sun, that the sun really, really cares about its children, all the different planets that are going on here. And as I've done this presentation before, and I'm going to check out what else is being said in the chat over here, and I'll get to the questions. The idea that we have some planets in our solar system that have died. And just like if you have a guitar that is supposed to have 6 strings, if my fingers are strings, and we lost this string, and then we lost, this string over here. Those strings that we lost, just like the planet Mars, it does not have a magnetosphere anymore. That's why it doesn't really have an atmosphere anymore. The protected envelope that is supposed to keep it alive, its time body was degraded through a violent activity, which is basically making an artificial Merkaba that destabilized the whole thing. Same thing with the planet that used to be between Mars and Jupiter. That's now a pile of rubble known as the asteroid belt. That is a missing guitar string on the guitar. So when we look at the physical apparatus of our solar system, we can tell harmonically there's supposed to be an E string there, but it's not there. And there's supposed to be a D string there, and it's not there. And so we're playing this very sad music in the solar system of having family members that have been killed, having these fellow collaborators that have been killed. And then Earth was just like the most recent conquest. And it's not inevitable at all. This is the corrective experience where it's like, oh, wait. You thought you were going to kill and eat another planet, consume, mine it for resources. The way you can take gold out of something, you're going to take consciousness and emotional energy and life force energy out of this planet and kind of vacuum or siphon it off and use it for our own purposes. That's what's going on. This is what I define as satanic technology. Satanic not deriving from any mythology words of the Bible, but really referring to an actual space race of non-terrestrial beings that are not expert enough to travel only on the stellar network, that they use clank metal spaceships. So when I was drawing that image of the stars as neurology, that is like a highway of consciousness that allows consciousness to travel through portals. Like you don't necessarily have to go all the way across linear space in order to get from thumb to pinky. You can fold linear space so that thumb and pinky are very, very close together. And what if we say all of my fingertips are all individual stars, far away in terms of linear space, but what if they're able to all be folded together so that they touch really, really close in a higher dimensional space? That is the idea of what we are doing. Flying rainbow lasagna is like origami for your DNA. Origami is taking a flat piece of paper, but then all of a sudden we can fold it up into the next highest dimension, third dimension, make a crane or an owl or whatever. Well, what if we can take your neurology and your DNA, and it doesn't have to be flat, experiencing time in a linear fashion. What if we can fold it up? What if we can make it so that you get a little bit of Neolithic times folded into your present experience and a little bit of far-flung future times folded into your physical experience? All of these divergent, far-flung times being drawn together through a higher dimensional understanding of portals, or what people would call, I guess, wormholes or something like that, being able to be connected on a higher dimensional level. Let me get to more of these questions. I apologize that I didn't see them in level 1. I'm still figuring out how to use this system effectively. Okay, so this is interesting. Ron is saying to one of the comments that I made, he says, like a good Borg. And that's really funny because when I first came here as Aurora, right, I'd be talking with people, didn't necessarily have the cultural shorthand to even know what the Borg was. But when people would say, Aurora, you're an extraterrestrial. Where do you come from? What planet do you come from? Where's your star up there? And I would say, I don't come from a particular planet, even though I jokingly had a show called Planet Aurora, like way back in Woodstock. I come from a collective of consciousness. And they'd be like, oh, like the Borg. And I had to learn what that is. I'm like, no, not like the Borg, because the Borg in that Star Trek show is based in technology. It's transhumanist. And it is a melding together of the biological and the technological. And it also means a loss of individuality, a loss of personal will, a loss of personal sovereignty as the price that one must pay in order to join the collective, join the Borg, and then lose yourself, but be part of something greater. And this is not like that at all. The collective that I'm a part of and what I'm advocating in my interactions on this planet is Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It is much more about maintaining your sense of individuality and your individual freedom while you collaborate with others. So ideally, sorry, I have dog hair on my nose. Ideally, artists or musicians who are collaborating together, each person is an expert in their own particular level of expression or their own particular field. So a cello player, they're really, really good at the cello. The piano player is really, really good at the piano. There's cell specialization. Like my heart cell is really, really good at pumping blood, and my tooth cell is really, really good at chewing stuff up, but they perform vastly different tasks, and I don't expect them to be interchangeable. So that's the difference between my collective and some kind of Borg or something like that. And that is also the understanding or the example of what the stellar network, the entire, it's a galactic scale being. We're little tiny neurotransmitters in this much, much, much larger brain. And the lives that we are living. Oh, that's what I didn't tell you. Oh, I'm so happy I'm remembering before I'm sometimes I finish these recordings and I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell them the most important part. So that leap across the synaptic gap, I got to draw this out for you. Thank you for bearing with me. Oh, clear this all away. Well, that I didn't actually have to clear it. I'll use a different color. That leap across the synaptic gap, we'll use a bright green color so you can see, is analogous to making it to this timeline that I'm highlighting in green. That central core timeline, if we're going from this where I made a green line down here to this where I made a green line over here, those are the two parts of the nerve. And this whole entire, I'll use black, this whole entire area where I am presently scribbling in black, that's the synaptic gap. We are the nerve impulses of a very, very large neurology, this star being that I'm scribbling over right there. And we are trying to make it from this nerve over here, jump across and make it to this nerve over here. And in exactly the same way that neural impulses are here, I'm an electrical impulse, electrical impulse, electrical impulse. Oops, now I'm a chemical impulse and I'm dots. I'm just little neurotransmitters going across here. Now I'm dots. And now, oh, I've been translated. Now I'm a neural impulse again. And I go on my journey. That is exactly what we are. That is what I'm trying to say with this interconnectedness of all of our consciousnesses and how it's like running a relay race. That just like in your body, the nerve signals need to jump across those gaps and they need to work together in order to make you be able to move your body or play the piano or digest your food. Same thing with our lives. If we're hitting the membrane of death and we're not making that successful jump across the synaptic gap, then it means that there's an impulse that was supposed to continue going through time that didn't get a chance to. That someone out there is like, I'm waiting for the baton, I'm waiting for that tone, I'm waiting for that beat, I'm waiting for the music, and I don't have the music yet because that guy didn't make the jump. And I'll also give, and I'll read more questions from the chat. One of the positive things that's going on right now is that we as a planet, this is what I'm pointing to with this and with this painting back here, are making that jump. Each one of us as individuals and us as a planet, we're making that jump into a higher dimensional reality that allows us to fold the distant, seemingly distant, divergent aspects of self or consciousness or photons into a very concentrated, coherent, overlapping area. And that gives us these levels of freedom that we didn't have before, that this is like the solution, that flying rainbow lasagna is the solution that allows us to supersede the constraints that we've been experiencing up until this time. So Ron, I love your example of it's like a good Borg. That's because a good Borg, it's like a band. I say this class and this effort that we're doing is like the advanced jazz band. You're invited to participate. I don't make people watch this show. I invite people like, come, be in the webinar, watch the show, do if it's interesting, hang out and learn stuff. But it's optional, it's not mandatory. It's not something that you must do. I didn't come here like some kind of an overlord to be like, I lasagna all of you if you don't like it. That's tough. You don't have a choice. You have to have a choice. Otherwise, this cannot be considered loving in any way. So and that's also how I can deal with, not everybody chooses. So not everybody is choosing to be a part of the band. Not everybody's interested in this. Not everybody is ready at that level of development to have these experiences. Oh, you want to jump down? Yes, stay here. We'll go for a walk real soon. That not everybody is ready to play that level of music. I had to come to acceptance on that because I think this music is the best music. I think this is the most awesome band. I think it's the most fun thing that we can possibly do with ourselves and with our bodies and in conjunction with our context. So it's like, yeah, of course you want to be part of it. Zephyr asks an excellent question. Will it happen for everyone regardless? And the answer is yes, because reaching that ascension timeline or that core central possibility is inevitable. That is the inevitability. Death is not the inevitability. Reaching that level of perfection is inevitability. But the question is, how many permutations, how many calculations do you have to do before you reach the right answer? How many wrong notes do you have to play? Like, here's a wrong note, wrong, 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 before I finally get to, that was the note we wanted you to play. So people that aren't ready for the band or that aren't interested in the band, they have the freedom. This is what freedom means. They have the freedom to go play whatever the heck music, I want to say whatever the F music you want to play. Do it. That's it. But also you take the consequences of what you do or you don't do. So if you are interested in running a marathon, but you never actually do the weightlifting or the training or the self-cultivation, and then you can't, you're like huffing and puffing and you fall down on the track because you can't actually make it anymore. It's like because you didn't play the right notes. So if you're playing, I'm going to experiment with ugly music. That's my music. And it's like, if you play that music, that's okay. Your body's going to fall apart because that's not music that leads to coherence. And it's also not integrating with the rest of the band, the rest of the symphony of life that this is all about. That's why it's like a good Borg. It's not just about your own personal agenda, what you want to say and what you want to do. You have to have rapport with the other musicians. What's that guy playing? Does it sound good with what I'm playing? What's Cheeky playing? Does it sound good with what I'm playing and what the rest of us are playing? How about the microbes in my tummy? Am I playing along well with the life that is within my body, that's living on the surface of my body, that's outside of my window? Are we integrating well with this entire symphony? And is our planet integrating well with the other planets in our solar system? And is our star integrating well with all the rest of the stars that are on this far, far distant neurology? Okay. Eric says, off topic, my kiddos are FRLing today. Xander says, hi. Hello, Xander. You're awesome. And this is a really good thing too. This is a very, this is not just for quote unquote grown-ups, that this effort to Flying Rainbow Lasagna and all of the information that I share, it is for people of every age, every chronological age. And let us not condescend or dismiss young people, because little infants that come here and they're pre-verbal, or they don't even know what their name is yet, they can't even walk yet, they are excellent lasagna dancers. They are totally tuned in, and in a lot of ways they are teachers and guides for the rest of us. And this is also why I have a theory that there is a vaccine agenda to reduce consciousness of infants at a very young age, to get them cutting off their connection to the divine as early as possible. Because literally when you have a little baby, a little 1-year-old baby, and you hug it, you're hugging the divine. There is very little ego barrier that separates that little beautiful baby consciousness from where it has come from, it just arrived here. It hasn't yet developed that membrane that says, I'm someone separate from all of you. It's actually still really connected. And that's also why babies are like little external battery packs. Like, you need a lift, hug a baby, smell a baby. That there's a reason for that. And it's beyond the mere objective materialist evolutionists explanation, which is, oh yes, babies have to be cute because otherwise parents would drown their children. No, it's a lot more than that. This is not just some survival ploy, I'm going to be cute and then you want to hug me even though I'm poopy. It's not like that. It is really that these little tiny infantile consciousnesses are incredibly advanced, and that, mostly humans condescend and they're like, you're pooping in your pants, I'm not going to listen to what you're saying. But they might be expert virtuosos of playing their DNA, that they're really good musicians. And then, of course, they acculturate. They learn how to be not as good in their musicianhood. So little kids, what we teach them in terms of socialization and how to be acculturated, that little kids want to run around all the time. They want to run around. They don't want to listen. If they feel tired, they want to flop on the floor and sleep, like a wild, beautiful, undomesticated creature. They don't want to have to, we teach them, you need to sit still. You need to sit in a chair. You need to be prepared for school. You need to learn how to wear shoes that cramp your little toes together. You need to learn how to sit in a desk, keep your hands together like this, focus on a teacher that's up there. We teach them all of these things. And I learned a lot. I was a professional babysitter for many years, and I worked with children of all ages. I learned a lot from looking at their behavior. And something, if a little kid needs to stretch out, it's going to stretch out. Even if it's in the supermarket. I started being like a little kid. Be like, something, my calves are feeling tight. I want to stretch. I got to drink some water. I'm like, let me grab my thing. I'm like, yeah, my body's feeling tight. I got to have a little stretch. regardless of whether it's socially acceptable, regardless of whether adults look at me like, yeah, what is she doing over there? Like she's doing some stretching, because little kids, they're like, oh, I want to stretch my body. Oh, I want to go like this. And little kids will run. Like you have to always tell little kids, no running in the hall. You're not allowed to do that. Kids want to run around, or young people want to run around. And then we get to be adults where it's like, oh, it's time for you to exercise. You have to run on a treadmill. It's like, oh, I have to run on a treadmill. I don't want to have to do it. It's somehow a culturalization limits the free movement of our DNA and our behavior, your physical behavior. And this is also like, well, I mean, if we used Cheeky as an example, if she were just a wild, undomesticated dog, she'd bark whatever she wants, she'd poop wherever she wants, she'd chew or bite whatever she wants. Like there's a social agreement where it's like, oh, if you want to live with me, you're not allowed to eat that, you're not allowed to poop there, you're not allowed to bite that, you're not allowed to make that noise. So kids learn that too. The young people learn that too. They learn, oh, if I want to be a part of this society, I'm not allowed to run around right now. I'm not allowed to pick my nose. I'm not allowed to eat and poop when I want to. People actually learn like, here, this is toilet time. You're allowed to go to the toilet now. You are not allowed to go to the toilet now. So these are all of the, and it sounds obvious that I'm saying all this, but I hope I'm describing it from the outsider's viewpoint that I've experienced it. So yes, we have a great deal to learn. Adults have a great deal to learn from young people in their virtuosity of being free in their DNA expression and connected to the divine. The divine is like the composer that's telling you what to do. And sometimes little kids are like, I want to run around in circles. And adults be like, stop running around in circles. You're driving me crazy. It's like, that's what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe we're supposed to be running around joyfully too and working all of our muscles in our legs instead of sitting in a sedentary way on a couch or, you know, not doing anything. That's what we were made for. It's what we're meant for. I'm almost at the end of this recording. I want to make sure that I get to all the chat questions. Again, apologies that I didn't see that before. And yeah, interesting comment from Eric about a changeling. Yeah, the idea of young people, this mythological idea that young people would be switched out somehow. Like that's not the original baby or child, that it got acculturated, it got changed, got limited or constrained, and is now no longer able to act in its true way. And so, yeah, the basics of the vaccine agenda is that it's literally a satanic sacrifice. And no offense to anyone if you vaccinated your children or whatever decisions you've made, no offense to you. But I see that there is a great falling down on the job of adults and parents in this time and place. Parents are supposed to protect their children so that they can grow and thrive and make it to adulthood. And in this time and place, it is understood that many vaccines are, well, first of all, it comes from the tortured cells, the cells of a tortured being, that the way that the cell lines are grown in order to grow vaccines, it comes from an abortion, a being who was trying to come and be alive, and their music was stopped horribly. Like they're playing along beautifully, and then all of a sudden, it stops their life. And it stops it in the most painful and torturous way possible. And all of that pain and torment is, of course, concentrated in the cells that are harvested and then exponentially expanded as the cell line is grown. And then those cells of torture are injected into other healthy infants. So when I see a lot of these, I have seen some videos of like profoundly vaccine injured children, and they're literally hitting themselves because there's two people inside of there. There's the original inhabitant, the original natural person that's supposed to be in there. Then there's literally invader cells, invader DNA that was injected into them by mangled, the scientists that mangle DNA, that mangle cells, that mangle the natural process. And then there's this inner conflict that causes disease. And it's, I think, a horrible thing to do to someone. Again, I'm not here to offend. I'm here to share my ideas. One of the best things we can do as adults is say for the children that we interact with or that we are charged with protecting, like, please do not pollute them with these foreign consciousnesses. Please protect them so that they have a freaking chance to grow and thrive, that these early inoculations and consistent inoculation throughout children's lives, it's like more and more constraints are placed on the free movement of their DNA until sometimes there's disease or even death. Let me get to more of these questions. All right. That is wonderful. Peg says, all of my children did exactly that ephemeral motion with their hands as infants. I am totally not surprised about that. I'm telling you, little children are very, very tuned in, like wonderful advanced spiritual teachers. And I think that maybe in other times and places, people have seen young people in that way. But in our present level of society, young people are seen as unintelligent or maybe even disposable, like not important, not a huge important part of society. But the reason, like in terms of consciousness suppression, why they're being targeted so much with vaccines, is because the truth is the complete opposite, that they are profoundly important to the music that is going on our planet at this time. Like think about how many babies are born each day, think about how many infants are out there each day. Those are wonderful musicians in the band, and that if you can turn the knobs on their guitar so that their music is sour, then it really, really affects the overarching music on the entire band. So Pedro also asks, if you use the Merkaba, can you protect children from vaccines' negative effects? I would say yes. Like the Merkaba is a very powerful consciousness tool to be able to protect people, and also you can protect people physically. And it's mostly a battle of willpower, like the individual versus the state. That's what this is. The state is a non-physical entity that is being treated as if it is an actual, has the same amount of power and truth as a physical embodied being. And so it's a battle of wills between the non-physical state, like so it's like a virus or a demon or a corporate entity that does not have a physical being of itself, trying to impose its will on physical beings. So I really feel it is our job. It's like, I have a body. I get to choose what comes into my body. And if you have a baby, and you are supposed to be protecting and choosing what goes into that baby's body until it can choose what goes into its body on its own. So the baby doesn't have the capacity to say to the state, no, don't inject that stuff into me. So we're supposed to say with our words and with our willpower, you're not allowed to inject that stuff into children. You're not supposed to be doing that. So this is part of the battle that's going on here. The battle right now is not being fought with guns and bombs and bullets. And because I say those words, I know those keywords. It's like, oh, the NSA is listening now. Guns, bombs, bullets. The battle and the war is fought with consciousness. It is fought with willpower. It is fought with divine, unconditional love and a connection to higher dimensional, less dense realms. So just like I gave the example before of, like I used the Merkaba as a shield around myself, and then I had an accident in the kitchen that caused, hot grease to fly everywhere, but it got everywhere, but it just didn't get on me. So I was protected. In some ways I had an energy field that protected me around me, but also like there were physical things that were going on. So it's way better not to have to be exposed to them. And, the impetus that is used, like, oh, if you don't vaccinate your children, they can't go to public school. Don't go to public school. This is more of the individual versus the state. And this, I think, is a very good, well, I'm almost at the end of this recording, a very good topic, basically about individuality and loss of individuality when it comes to being a part of the whole. So in terms of my collective of consciousness, I don't lose anything by being part of the collective. I'm an individual musician. I'm part of a band, like a symphony, and I don't have to be any less myself, or I don't have to sacrifice myself or diminish myself in order to play with others. The real genius of the overarching composer and conductor is keeping everybody in their true state. Like, I'm supposed to be who I am. Chiki is supposed to be the dog that she is. Each one of you are supposed to be the individual that is unique that you are, because your DNA dance is unique. Your fingerprint is unique. Your journey through time is unique. The photons that you are using for your body and your flesh came through their own unique provenance to be used by you. And that complexity is amazing and beautiful. We don't want to get rid of those levels of complexity. We don't want total uniformity and homogeneity. That not only is boring, but it's predictable, and it makes it a weak system. If you have a very predictable system, it's like, I know where that particle is going to be in 5 years. I can smash that particle, or I can chop it up into bits, or I can destroy it in some way. Like, that's the whole point. In order to make this very strong system that called reality and called life, and keep life going and not have life end in death for the individual or the collective. If our planet dies, it's a collective death. It's not just an individual death. It's death of the entire biosphere. So to keep life going, and that life is transfer of consciousness from moment to moment, to keep consciousness moving through time, we have to be unpredictable. We cannot be, it's a weak system. It's not a perpetual motion machine if you have total predictability. You have to be able to come up with something new, come up with new combinations, new ideas, invent. Yeah, I'm playing the piano here. Invent a new instrument. If you want to be unpredictable, make a bunch of sounds that have never been made before, new combinations, new instruments, all of that. So if there are any other questions, I will check out that recommendation that I should check out that song by Rage Against the Machine. If there are any other questions, good question up there. Okay, I missed that. Chloe asks, can you moon gaze? Different light source. Yes. So technically the moon is a reflector of the sun, and you could moon gaze, but what you're really getting is indirect sunlight. And there are real questions about whether the moon has been transformed or limited, or whether the guitar strings of the moon have been turned so it's no longer perfectly in tune, and that whether it is an effective, good source of light and energy and information. I'm telling you, I get my ideas from the sun, and I know that the stars are other suns. I'm not that much of a moon gazer. So that's just my personal, I would say everybody do what feels right to you in the music, but I don't get that much inspiration from the moon, but I definitely do get it from, and I know also the moon is like literally a rock, but suns and stars are portals for consciousness where photons are coming from another dimension into this dimension, and then eventually the stars will become black holes that will take information from this dimension out of here and send it somewhere else. That's a totally different apparatus than just, a inert rock that is reflecting the light that's coming from all this other neurology. So I would say you can't go wrong with focusing on the sun. And I get pretty much all of my ideas and energy from the sun. And when a friend was visiting me over the weekend, it's very, very cloudy and foggy where I lived. And my energy was like not as high as it usually is. My ideas, and even my voice didn't sound as strong as I usually do. So all of my thought energy and energy for creativity and personal expression and expansion comes from the sun. I really don't feel it that much coming from the moon. Let me see if I missed anything else that's important. Okay, I think I got everything that's important. Let me end the recording for right now. I'm going to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in and who's watched this. This lesson for level 2, the advanced lesson, corresponds with level 11, which is about the advanced stuff, the sun and the endocannabinoid system, and how we are part of this larger neurology. And of course, I bounced around a lot, so it's worth it to enroll. It's worth it to check out the actual recorded lessons on that. So I invite and encourage everyone to do that. And thank you so much. People make wonderful comments. I promise I will get to the comments and tell you, respond, even if it takes me a couple of weeks. Thank you for your patience on that. Thank you so much.